Okay, so what we have here is a basic flatbed Sears Kenmore machine. This is a Japanese machine, and there were millions of these made in the marketplace. It's a very common machine. And what we'll see here right away is that this is also an oscillating hook machine, kind of like the Bernina, where the hook will turn half of the circumference of the basket and then the other half of the circumference of the basket, oscillating back and forth to grab the thread off of the needle and make a stitch. Okay, so this is also a basic oscillating hook machine. So we're going to go ahead and read the claim check. The first thing we want to do on a service is look at our paperwork. This is approved for service, and it's been checked in, and we're ready to go on this. So we're going to go ahead. We'll set the paperwork aside, and we're going to remove the needle. You always change the needle on a service. The first thing you want to do is always put a new needle in the machine. That looks like a very old needle as well. So we're going to open our needle box, and we're going to put an 8012 universal Schmetz needle in the machine. Okay. Then we're going to get this. Actually, this plate just pops right off. I just popped that off the front so we can access the bobbin. I grabbed the bobbin with the latch to release it, pinched it, and it pulled right out. And we have really old thread on here that looks like it's poor quality thread. You can tell if thread is a poor quality thread if it's very fibrous. So if you can see the strands of fibers coming off of the thread, then it's a bad quality thread. And plus, you want to sew a machine out using a 50 weight polyester thread. Okay. Now, in the last video, or in one of the videos I did with the Bernina where we were balancing the tensions, I'm going to go ahead and pull this old thread off of the bobbin. There's not a lot of it, so I just pulled off basically what was there. We're going to throw that away. We had contrasting colors of thread on there to go ahead and make sure the tensions were balanced. I just know from pulling on the thread on this bobbin case here that the thread tension is as it should be for a machine of this caliber, or what this machine is like. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with winding the bobbin. Now, if you're unsure of the tensions and you want to do your initial test, go ahead and do it with like a bobbin you might have at your bench. It's a 15 class bobbin with a different color, and you can see the thread tensions. But I can already tell that this machine, we're going to have some pretty normal thread tensions on. I'm going to set the upper tension to a 4 because this is a 0 to 9. So factory setting would be right in the middle on a 4. So we're just going to start out right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and wrap the thread. You see we went through our pre-tensioner for bobbin winding from the spool, through our pre-tensioner over here that looks like a pigtail, to the bobbin. This machine has a clutch on the outside right here, so I can rotate that, and it's going to go ahead, now it's loose. Okay? Okay, so this machine came in with no power cord from the customer, and we can see it takes 3-prong kind of plug-in. That's kind of a more rare plug-in. And so we have a lot of foot pedals in the shop, but in this instance, we don't happen to have this type of plug-in. So what we're going to go ahead and do is hot lead the machine. And what that means is we're going to take an electric cord that we're going to hook up directly to these leads right here in the back to run the machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is apply the lead to one part here, and then we're going to slide our other lead on, and depending on how your hot leads are set up, you need to electrify one part here. Alright, now if you're not comfortable with this, or you don't understand how this works exactly, you can have a higher level technician help you. However, this is a pretty actually basic, straightforward thing. You just have to make sure that the 2 electrical ends are secured. Then you're going to plug it in. So that didn't work on those 2 leads, so that means it's the middle one is the one that's going to help activate the machine that we're going to plug in there. And the machine's running great. The motor's running good. What I'm going to do is unplug the leads, but leave them connected down here so that I can go ahead and work with the machine. as I need to, because we need to wind a bobbin. So we'll keep those hooked up. And then we're going to go ahead and get this bobbin wound. So we'll engage our bobbin stopper, and we will wind the bobbin round and around and around. Turn that stopper on. Check my leads one more time just to make sure they're connected. And then we will just stop it. So we went ahead and connected our leads. We've got our bobbin set up for winding. And we'll go ahead and fire this up. And we have to make sure we're connected in the right part of the spades. And again, we don't have to wind up a lot of bobbin thread. We're just going to unplug it when we're good to go. I'm going to disconnect my leads for now so that I can lay the machine back down. Okay, and then what we want to do is part of the first part of the test here is go ahead. I'm going to push this bar down right here. This is our pressure bar for the pressure of the foot, and it'll lock into place. Sometimes what happens is these get released by pressing down on this, so it's really loose. We want this to be at least at a 4 to apply pressure down to actually sew. Okay, so this machine has a quick release hook race, so I'm going to disconnect these two little arms right here by pushing over on one, over on the other, and then the race will actually come out, and then the hook will come out. So now we can go ahead and generously apply air. All right, and then I'm going to clean my parts as well. And then we will set the hook back in place. First, what I'll do is take a shop rag, double it over, just like this. And we can see this part of the hook race is very dirty. See all that dirt around there? We want to clean that. Then the hook has a little bit of dirt on it too. It's kind of in bad shape. We're going to take a Tri-Flow aerosol lubricant. Okay, you have to shake this up. We're going to spray the parts. Okay, we're going to wipe them down. But nice and clean. And we can see there's a lot of debris on the bottom side right here. So we're going to just clean that off. Sometimes you can even take an old needle. So we do have quite a bit of debris here. And we'll just clean that off. And that's going to help for performance, to make sure And so you can see all that gunk that came off of there. So now this is actually where the loop lift happens and where the thread delivers. It's going to be a lot better with all the crud out of there. Now the hook, we got that nice and cleaned up too. Cleaned it with our Tri-Flow oil. Now we're going to put it back into the hook race. So I'm going to set the hook into the race. Opposite of the basket. Okay, so it fits in there very particularly. Sometimes it's really easy to do it while the machine's on its back. The race is going to go in with the cutout facing in. And then these two nipples facing out. Nipples face out, cutout goes in. And you'll see that there's a cutout on the bottom here that this little peg is going to sit on. So the peg sits on, and then we can close the arms on the nipples and you'll hear a click. And so our case is back in place, and we've cleaned the race out to do our initial test. So you can take an oiler and put a drop of oil down here right where the hook runs. Okay, so I'm putting a drop of oil right here. It's okay if there's a little bit extra. I can take my rag, wipe that off. On an old metal machine like this, a little bit of extra oil goes a long way. So we're going to go ahead and put our bobbin in. The thread's going to come off the left-hand side, and we're going to press the bobbin in. Okay, I'm sorry, it's actually going to go off of the right-hand side of the bobbin. We're going to pop that in. The thread's going to go into the threading port, and then I'm going to pull it into the tensioner just like that. And we can see that it's turning clockwise. Okay, we're going to plug this in with the little arm facing up, and we'll hear a click when it goes into place. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and pop our needle plate on, and then we're going to thread the top of the machine. So you always start out on the spool pin. So we got our spool pin, there's a pre-tensioner right here, and then a tensioner here. Then I'm going to hold the thread back here with my right hand to keep tension on it, and then I'm going to thread through the tensioner, and see I'm going in between the discs. So the thread's actually going to go in between the discs, and see how the discs are loose, so the thread fits right in there. That's what's important about that, is that the foot is up. That opens the discs. And you can see them opening and closing. They open when the foot's up, they're closed when it's down, and the thread won't go in between them. So it's open, up, and it'll go in between it. Okay? So now I'm going to go around the tensioner, and then I'm going to hook this back. This is the check spring here. So it's in the cradle of the check spring. And then I'm going to go under this arm right here. See that? How it checks back and forth. That's what we want. The check spring's got to do its job. Then we have a guide. We're going right to left through that guide. Then we're going to go ahead, I'm going to fold the thread over and twist it so it's pointed. And I'm going to go through the eye of the take-up arm, pull that through, and go back through this same guide. Okay, that keeps the thread in position as it delivers down through this needle bar guide here. This is a pigtail, so I can actually just go through the inside of it, and now it's in the pigtail. Okay, so now we have the needle bar guide, the final needle bar guide, which is open on the left hand side. So I caught the thread on there, and now it's in there. Alright, so I'm going to cut the thread at an angle, and then we're going to go through the eye of the needle, thread that up under the foot, and then we're going to go ahead and re-engage the clutch from bobbin winding. I'm going to turn it tight. Now I'm going to take one full stitch, take the thread like I'm flossing, and pass it under the foot like that. Got the tails going out the back. We're ready to do a test sew. So again, I have to apply the leads to the electrical spades where the foot pedal would normally plug in, making sure that I'm unplugged while I do this. That's important. So we're going to make sure we're unplugged. Now we can just run the machine by plugging it in. So I'll get some sew out material. And we're going to set this machine to a 2 length, stitch length, which is actually right here. And this is our reverse right here to lock stitch, is what we press in and out. And then this is our width. So we're going to start out on a 0 for a straight stitch. And now I'm going to go ahead and plug in the machine and do a straight stitch down the flat side of the seam. I folded the seam over so it's on the edge of the foot. Alright, and there's a little bit of oil coming out of there. So we're going to go ahead and do another sample, go in this direction. And we will go ahead and run the machine. So now we can see that the stitch is picking up more oil and debris. It's an old machine, so there's a lot of residual debris and so I went ahead and just stitched some extra to get that out, to get some of that oil and debris out. And we're actually going to do a little bit of stitching on a shop rag to go ahead and work that out. Sometimes just stitching the loop lift traveling around the bobbin case will actually help capture debris with the oil that we put in there, and then clean the hook race. So I'm going to oil it a little bit more. We'll make sure our leads are hooked up. And these old machines actually stitch pretty fast. Do a pretty good job too as far as like heavy duty sewing. So the sample's starting to look better. The thread's starting to pick up more of that debris as the oil gets cleaned out. So that's good. You don't want to stitch off of the material though, so the thread can break. It's kind of difficult when you're hot leading a machine. So it's preferable to have the foot pedal for a machine when it comes in, especially on like a strange machine like this. Just guide it.
Oh wait, let me make sure it's run. It's going.
Just stop it and start it again, because I don't want to have to cut it. Okay, so now we're going to do a zigzag. We can see as we ran the machine, went ahead and changed the width of the zigzag to show that that mechanism is working good. We can look at the back and we can see that we have actually a really nice stitch sample. For a machine like this, you'll see it pulls a little bit on one side of the loop release, which is normal. You can see that it's pulling on that side there a little bit. The top thread's getting pulled down, but that's normal. Okay, the top looks great. And then a little bit of that top thread pulls on just the one side. And that has to do with where the thread, the loop on the bottom, you'll see the top thread gets grabbed, the loop is traveling, and then boom, that loop pulls on that one side. Where that loop gets released and it's kind of loose and gets pulled up right there, that's where we have a little bit of that pulling right there. And so that's normal on a machine like this. This isn't really a precision machine. So we've got a great sew out that we can use for our final documentation and to put with the machine. And on a simple machine like this, you don't need as many stitches. It doesn't do reverse cycling. It's a straight stitch and a zigzag machine, and we've tested the reverse, so we know it works. So pretty straightforward, which is good. So we're going to go ahead and split this sample in two. One's for our checklist, one's for the customer. So we're going to put that with the paperwork. And now we can go ahead and proceed with the cleaning and service of the machine. So we're going to do the top of this machine first. We can go ahead and get a flathead screwdriver. And we're going to take out the two screws. There's two screws on top here, holding everything together. On top, and that comes right off. So it's a pretty simple system. We have a shaft, okay, with fork that runs the feed linkage in the bottom, stitch cam, and then we've got a take-up arm with the crank and the needle bar assembly here. And what's nice is this sewing head just opens right up. Actually, you can just push on it and it opens up. Okay, so we're going to blow this out. It's actually pretty clean on the inside, but we're just going to do it for good measure. Okay, so that's all cleaned out, so that's good. Now we're going to go ahead and go through and oil the oil point. So see here, we have an oil point. We'll fill that up with oil, and we'll do both sides of the bushing. There's some forks here with an eccentric that we're going to oil, and we can turn that. Okay, the hand wheel, just to the inside of the bobbin tire, has a bushing that we can oil. I'll come from the back side so we can see that. Okay, we'll turn the hand wheel. Now we can see there's a worm drive gear, a metal worm drive gear underneath the shaft. We're going to go ahead and oil that and turn it to get the oil on there. Now at the very end of the shaft, just to the right of there's a bushing right here that we're going to oil, and then I'm going to turn that, and you can see that the oil will penetrate the bushing as I turn it. Okay? Now on this side over here, you'll see there's a counterweight that turns. Here we're going to go to the right of that, right here, so you can see where I'm going to oil right into that bushing and turn it to work it in. Okay, now up here, see the holes for the oil, and then there's a hole on top here on this take-up arm. Okay, and we want to turn this so the oil penetrates the bushings. And there's one more right here. And then we're going to do our needle bar on top here and run that down. And then the bottom of the needle bar right here, down here. And you'll see that that needle bar goes up and down, driving the oil into the bushings on the top and bottom. Now on the very top, there's an oil point here as well. This is for the zigzag mechanism for when the machine does a full zigzag. It actually swivels back and forth just slightly. Okay. So you can see how that moves. You can actually move a mechanical machine with your finger. And then there's a little bushing up here that I'm going to oil through. I'm going to put some oil on that and then push that in so it gets oil into that bushing. Okay. So now a really important thing while we're up top, we want to go ahead and take the needle plate off. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screwdriver as much on that needle plate bar screw, the needle plate screw, as I can to take the screw off. I'm going to put the screw into my magnet tray. Always use a magnet tray for screws. Okay, now I'm going to do the other screw. And these are really tight. They may have never been taken off before. So we'll take that off. And now we'll remove the needle plate. Okay, and then we're going to clean in between those feed dogs so it's all clean now. So we didn't have debris in there. And now we'll go ahead, we're going to look at the needle plate to see if we have burrs in there from the needle striking it. And there's a little burr right there. So we're going to take care of that with a flat blade diamond file. So this is a flat blade diamond file. It's flat and it's small enough that it'll fit into the needle plate. We're going to brace the needle plate down on the bench. Okay? And then we're going to slide this in. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to clean this up. This actually has a special needle plate that turns it into a straight stitch. See how it's open and then you slide it back and it becomes a straight hole. It's kind of an old design. It's kind of fun. So we got to be careful about how we file this. So we're going to go ahead and brace the end of this here and get the file in there. We take that down. And we don't have to apply a lot of pressure. We're actually going to go back and forth and let the file do the work. Okay. We're going to take that down. And it's still got a little bit of a nick on top. So we're going to take it over to the buffing wheel. There's a buffing stone and a grinding stone. We're not going to grind on this, we're just going to buff it. The buffing stone is for polishing. And you can see now we've polished that off. So the idea is that we don't have a serious nick or burr in there that can catch the thread. This has a groove in it, but now we've gone ahead and we worked that groove so that it is nice and smooth, and then we buffed the surface so there's no more nicks that can pick up the thread and break the thread. So we can replace the needle plate. Nice long screwdrivers with a flat head are great for needle plate screws. So we got that on there. Then we're going to put our top on. And we're going to go ahead and turn the screw. Tighten that up. Just like that. Okay. This is actually a stitch cam for the zigzag. And the way these get released is there's actually a little clip right here that you hold over on and it just pops off. Then you can put it back on. Just like that. And then these two ears are going to go under the plate here. And then they pop down. So it's good. Then we'll close that. So now what we're going to do is we fully serviced the top of the machine. We're going to do the bottom, and this is interesting because this old machine actually has marked oil points all the way through it. We're going to blow it off and clean it. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to oil through all of these red oil points. And it's okay if a little bit too much oil comes out of the oil points. Because we can go back through with a rag and we can actually wipe off the excess oil. That's no problem to do that. Okay. So we've oiled through. Wipe those down. So the bottom is now fully serviced and this machine is really running smooth now. Hand wheel's turning really smooth. I'm going to take off the old red felts. These are kind of old and worn out. We'll put new ones on. It's what we want to do with a vertical spool pin machine. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and spray the machine down. And what we can do with machines like this where the knobs are really dirty because they have dirt like in the grooves and everything, is we can go ahead and put our rag underneath it and spray it, and it actually cleans the dirt out. It washes it out and I'm catching all the excess with the rag. Only on mechanical machines can you really do this safely. You cannot do this on a computerized machine, which you will not work on until you're Tech 2. So we'll wipe this down. We're gonna clean the machine off. Get all of the excess simple green off of here, making it nice and clean and bright. Same thing with this tension assembly. We're gonna go ahead and spray that because it's pretty dirty. And then we can go ahead and kind of dab that, clean it up. It's nice and shiny now, which we want a great customer experience. You know, we want people to really look at their machine, especially an old vintage machine like this. They have a nostalgia for it. This kind of feeling of looking at something, you know, that's like from another style. This is like a machine from the 70s, you can tell. Sometimes the spool pins are a little bit wobbly, and you'll see they actually have a flat head on them where you can go ahead and turn these to tighten them up with like a number 1 flat blade, or this is a 00, which is like too small. So we'll move up to a number 2 blade, and then we can actually tighten those down now. So they're not going anywhere, which isn't good. And so we'll clean all this up here. And you can see all that debris coming off of there. It's pretty gross, which is good. We're getting it off, cleaning it. You want to be thorough. The inside of the hand wheel usually has a lot. The back has a bunch of handprints on it from me handling it. And just black, old dust. So we're really going to wipe this down, get it all cleaned up. And then we'll clean out the inside of the hand wheel with our rag. And then the silver clutch wheel, we'll polish that up nice and shiny. So I'm going to go over it one more time with the dry rag. Just making sure that we get all of the residual off. Turning the stitch length knobs back to the standard, like a 2 and then a 0 for the zigzag. So it's on a straight stitch now, it's not set to a zigzag. Most people just sew with the straight stitch, so always set the machine back to a straight stitch before you put it back out, or before you return it to the machine, or to the machine to the customer. You want to put it back on a straight stitch. Everything's nice and clean. We're going to go ahead and put our service sticker on it. And we're going to go on the back just above the Sears Kenmore plate there. Kind of pressing on it as we go to keep it all where it needs to be. And then we're going to go through our service checklist real quick. Let's just make sure we didn't miss anything and we're being thorough. I'm going to initial my checklist, and we're going to write the repair number on the checklist here. The repair number is 34916, and we check the cosmetic condition of the machine. One thing we want to do is actually add our red spool felts That's important for a horizontal spool pin machine like this. We got brand new spool felts here, so it looks really good. And the machine did power on. The bobbin winder runs. It's not computerized, so we don't have to worry about the firmware. The stitch formation's great. The stitch delivery system's working. The feed system works great. We saw how great that was feeding the material. Our initial sewing test checked out with the new needle, so that's all good. One thing is that the bulb does need to be changed out. So that is one thing we did not do. And this is a bayonet bulb. So we're going to go ahead and put a new bayonet bulb in this machine. And this is a bayonet style bulb, which means it pushes and twists when it goes in. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put one of these in. And this actually takes a special kind of bulb. We can see the difference in the size. So we're going to look and see if we don't have a long spade one. Okay, so we've got a bulb that's the same size. It's not too long. And so it's going to fit into this ballast. And this actually has a release right here, this little lever that brings the ballast down. And I'm going to twist the bulb until I feel the pins go into place. Sometimes turning the machine head up on its side will help. And then I can push down and twist. It's in place and it pops back up. Alright. So it's a good thing we're going through our checklist, and we're going to upcharge for this bulb. We'll let the customer know, hey, we did need a new bulb. The other bulb was burned out, which is good. And if they decline the bulb or say they don't want it, we can actually simply take that out, no problem. Okay? So we've gone through our initial check on the cosmetic condition of the machine. The feed teeth are rising properly. We put a new needle in it. We've done our test. It's doing great. We're going to initial on the second page of the checklist. We removed the covers for service, cleaned the machine, and we've oiled it on the inside. We lubricated it. We checked our adjustments, made sure everything was in time with the test. We put the covers back on, so we're good there. We've cleaned the exterior of the machine. We're going to initial again here. We did a final sew in, which tested out great. And we're going to do a final bench check to make sure we have none of their stuff around, which this machine head came in. When we look at the check-in list here with a bobbin case and a bobbin, which it has, the presser foot, which it has. So very stripped down machine. There's no foot pedal. So we're good to go on that. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. And then we're going to date it. Now we're going to run a copy of this. One for our records and one for the customer. So we're going to take our copies and we're going to put them in the feeder, and we're going to simply do a copy in black and white. We don't want to use color ink for this. And your shop will have a basic black and white copying machine in it for this, and you need these checklists to be copied. So there's one for the customer, one for us. We're going to go ahead and file these when the customer picks up their machine. So we have a copy of the work done, if there's any questions at all, and then the customer has a copy too. So in the process of doing a service, we've got about 6 documents here, in addition to a 7th document and a claim check all together. Okay, so each service, we're going through a documentation process to ensure that we're being thorough. So we're going to go ahead and staple our checklist to the upper left-hand corner. We're going to keep the original copy, and then the copy goes to the customer. This checkout sheet that we keep goes with the original. And then the spot where we put our sew out is going to go right here in the box, where we have a box here where I signed. The sew out will go there with a staple holding it in place. Okay, that's important. And then we have our invoice on here. And then for the customer copy, we're going to go ahead and fold that and staple this to the customer copy. And I like to fold it in half to present my signature in the test. And then I fold down the top. And then this goes underneath the presser foot, because at the counter they're going to inspect the stitch sample with the customer as the final piece of the checkout when they check the machine out. So it's important that that stitch sample faces up. The checklist is right there for the customer. They can see it. That's their copy. They can get it so they know it's testing out great. It's working really well. We're going to go ahead and write up an invoice. We're going to put a green tag on this, and we cover this in a plastic shroud. So that we keep all of the dust off of the machine that flies around in the shop from vacuum cleaners and stuff. And the customer gets this as a courtesy for their repair. All right.